Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Alpine Shire Council for the 5th of April 2022. Welcome to our gallery. Thank you, Mr. Bird. For item 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 1 is the recording and live streaming of council meetings. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. The video is focused on a specific area from Mr. Jeremy here through to Councillor Forsyth at the other end. However, audio from the entire room and the gallery is captured. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is, of course, to hold us more accountable and improve transparency of council's decision making to our community. The full meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to Council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Item 2 is acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition of all people, which we will stand. The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We pay our respect to elders past and present. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Item 3 is confirmation of the minutes from the Ordinary Council meeting March 2022. Moved Councillor Forsyth, seconded Councillor Hughes. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favour? Carried. The next item is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Kelly Prime and from Ms Helen Havercroft, our Director of Corporate. The next item is item 5, obituaries and congratulations, and I will go from my left, Councillor Forsyth.
Neil. Thanks, Mayor. Just like to congratulations, Team Mount Beauty for the last couple of weeks of events that they've had over in Mount Beauty. It's been very busy in the streets. That's outside of the GOAT program that was there, but the other ones there, that was great. And then to the Mount Beauty Swimming Club for organising the Deb on the weekend. It's good for the young people to have some celebration over the last couple of years and to, have, not so much have a party, but just have a, be front and centre and do something like that. So, congratulations to them.
Mine is to congratulate all of those happily fit people that entered the Buffalo Stampede on the weekend. Councillor Kelly. Stellar effort by everybody involved, to those organising, those volunteering, those that entered, and the families and their kids and everyone that came along to cheer people on as well. There were people along different pit stops all throughout the hills, and a lot of our locals entered this year. It was really nice to see some happy smiling faces entering that again, so congratulations to everyone involved to make that one such a big success.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Likewise with Councillor Hughes, I did note the Buffalo Stampede, great event for all ages too, lots of categories, lots of fitness levels, so well done to that organisation. The other congratulations I wanted to mention was on the Bogong Outdoor Education School up at Bogong Village there. They had a 50th year anniversary or celebration, which I understand was really well attended and a fantastic milestone. I was a pupil at that in 1991, I believe. So a lot of benefit to a lot of people in Victoria and in our community.
Thank you, councillors. I'd like to add congratulations to the Sustainable Upper Ovens group and Towards Renewable Energy Kiwa groups. who organised the Community Carbon Action Field Day a couple of weekends ago. It was terrifically well attended and had some really great information about how people can take responsibility for their own carbon and take steps towards carbon neutral. And also I'd like to congratulate the Bright Art Gallery for its 60th exhibition, which has opened just recently, and I urge everybody to go and see it. It's an incredible array of really beautiful paintings, and some are local and some are from further afield, but really interesting collection. And I'd also like to congratulate our council staff for putting on the roller disco, because both Councillor Hughes and myself had to go with our kids, and it was such good fun. It was unbelievably, took me right back to my youth. So it was good fun. And the final thing I'd like to talk about is just a recognition of all the people who are displaced, injured or bereaved, or bereaved because of the Ukrainian conflict. So our concerns and thoughts are with those people. We will move on to declarations by councillors of conflict of interest.
Madam Mayor, I have declared a conflict of interest in item 9.3.11.
Thank you, Councillor Janis.
Mayor, I'll declare a potential or perceived conflict of interest on item 9.2.3, Big Hill car park ceiling.
Thank you, and I also declare a conflict of interest on item 9.3.9, a planning matter in my street in Wandillagong. Our next item is item 7, public questions, and I call for any questions from the gallery. We're doing standards.
Thank you, Mary. This legislation change and introduction of these regulations is something which have been raised to council by other community members, and it's a matter which council isn't supportive of this change, and we've voiced and written to the state government sharing our views. They've considered our views and proceeded and made the legislation change and introduced the regulations. We're aware of where some of these sites are being considered, where we're looking at extending the Kiwa River Trail in the Kiwa Valley and in other parts of the Kiwa River as well. So I'm not aware that it's actually council has a say on whether the licence can be granted. If that is the case, we would welcome the opportunity to actually have a say.
I do have another question that was sent in, and it's also from you, Mary, from the Upper Kiwa Valley Community Association. In the light of the March Council meeting not being able to be held in Mount Beauty as scheduled, would the Council please consider planning a meeting in Mount Beauty later in the year? Thank you very much for the question, and we have organised to hold the May Ordinary Council meeting in Mount Beauty, which is Tuesday, May the 3rd, and the venue is yet to be confirmed, but it'll be in Mount Beauty. Thank you. The next item is about urgent business, and I will hand over to Mr. Bird to talk to it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'd like to admit a council report for item 9.2.10 regarding the Mount Beauty Airport upgrade variation. This agenda as urgent business in accordance with Chapter 3, Section C4.2 of Council's governance rules. This report is considered to be urgent business because a decision is required to enable the project to proceed to completion within the remaining construction window before winter.
Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Forsyth, Councillor Kiwa. Any comment?
Just simply the comment that if this is correct, sorry, let me just have a look at it.
Councillor Forsyth, this is the motion to accept the
Yes.
the paper later on, yep.
Actually, look, just pass to Councillor Keeble if you'd like to make comment.
So happy to look at the report later at item 9.2.10. You ready to move on, Councillor Forsyth? Yes. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Then we move on to presentation of reports by officers. And we start with 9.1, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bird.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to the Victorian Electoral Commission election report in relation to the Alpine Shire Council countback report. It's a procedural matter which is just a report following Councillor Shelley Vincent's resignation and the countback which resulted in Councillor Simon Kelly being elected to Council. The recommendation is that Council receives and notes the Alpine Shire Council Local Government countback report, 19th of January 2022, prepared by the Victorian Electoral Commission.
Yes.
Councillor Dennis.
We've already congratulated him a few times.
Yes, I know. Mr. Bird, do we have any indication from the Electoral Commission of how much it cost us to do this? I know Councillor Kelly is well worth the money spent, but I'd still like to know how much the procedure cost.
Thank you, Councillor Janus. I'm unaware of what the cost to Council is for this procedure. My comment on is that I guess it's interesting that there's a number of countbacks I've noticed happening across the state at different councils for different reasons.
Thank you. I look forward to some research being done on that and a response at a later time.
Any further comment on the item? No. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We move on to 9.2, Director of Assets, Mr. Jeremy, and 9.2.1, Energy Efficient Street Lighting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to the award of a contract for the supply of energy efficient streetlight hardware as part of the Energy Efficient Street Lighting project. Council adopted the Alpine Shire Council Climate Action Plan at the September 2021 Council meeting, committing to climate change mitigation by reducing greenhouse gas emissions from Council's corporate operations to net zero by 2023, upgrading street lighting to improve efficiencies, reduce greenhouse gas emissions and introduce new technology is one of the actions that was identified in Council's Climate Action Plan. An audit of Council's streetlights has been carried out and has identified that 1,333 of the 1,494 streetlights would benefit from an upgrade, and these include 849 mercury vapour and 403 sodium lights. So mercury vapour technology is being phased out over the next 2 to 5 years under international agreements and will no longer be available. Sodium and mercury vapour lights are inefficient and have a high impact on the environment. These lights will be upgraded to LED technology, which is more efficient and less harmful to the environment. So I've outlined the overall project benefits in the report for you there, which is freeing up renewable energy, electricity energy supply for other users, savings in energy consumption, and where we are looking at the lux levels of our lighting, we're looking at some opportunities to improve safety on our roads by improving some of the lighting in spot locations. We've carried out a collaborative procurement or collaborative procurement process for this under the Local Government Act 2020. We've been out to 9 suppliers on the MAV panel, 4 of which are approved by AusNet Services to supply street lights, and all 4 of those approved suppliers tendered. So we had 4 tenders to evaluate. We've been through an assessment and we've established that the tender from Sylvania Schroeder best met the requirements of the selection criteria. One thing of note, an exclusion from the scope of this project is this project is limited to street lights only. So that's infrastructure that's owned by SP AusNet. It doesn't include lighting within councils, parks, reserves and facilities. So a separate audit of that lighting will be scheduled at some point in the future to establish what the opportunities are for upgrades to those lights. Financial return on the investment analysis we've carried out includes a payback period between 4 and 7 years, excluding the rebates that are available. We'll chase every opportunity we can to secure rebates. There's a bit of uncertainty about the value of those rebates, but we believe that by securing available rebates, we can bring the payback period down to as little as 2 years for this project. So the recommendation to Council this evening is that Council awards contract 2201-501 for the supply of energy-efficient streetlight hardware to Sylvania Schroeder, based on the tender schedule of rates with an upper limiting value of 440,000 exclusive of GST.
So moved.
Moved Councillor Janus, seconded Councillor Hughes. Councillor Janus.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jeremy. This is certainly in line with our plan going forward for reduction of greenhouse gases. It is a positive step forward for the environment, firstly, and secondly, it will assist in our future funding or for our future finances going forward. So the money we save on the street lights, you know, we can put to other community projects. I'm sure going forward we'll certainly find plenty of those to do, but I think the important thing is the environment in this instance. So thank you for that comprehensive report.
It's a great initiative, and it's you know, leading into the future of where things can go, and the fact that you know, it has noted in there that our public spaces, our parks, and that will be looked at a later stage, not part of this one, but it is that start, and I think it's showing a really good example for our up and coming generations of all the things that we can do to help with all of this. And as noted, you know, it is part of an action identified in our climate action plan as well, so working towards what we've put in there and the goals we're hoping to achieve, so it's exciting times.
Thank you. Any other councillors comment or add? No, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That'll be carried. We move on to item 9.2.2, communication services for capital works projects.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement to engage a suitably qualified and experienced communications consultancy to provide communication and engagement support to the asset development team within Council. So Council has successfully secured significant state and Australian government funding to deliver a number of important capital projects, and there is significant community interest in these projects. At the moment, the resource that we have in-house for communications is unable to meet the increased demand as a result of us securing all this funding and having a large number of projects to deliver. So we believe we're missing opportunities to fully engage the community around the delivery of these projects. Engaging some additional external support will provide regular, well-planned and proactive communication and will result in better project outcomes by more effectively engaging our community to provide input into projects during the scoping and the design phases, and keeping our community better informed as projects are being delivered. So the contract services that we're proposing are fully funded by the external capital project funding. So the way we've done that is in each of our funding applications that we've made for external funding, we've ring-fenced an amount of an allocation of the funding that we're applying for to cover the cost of the communication services. We're pooling the funding that's contained within each of those funding applications to provide a pool of funds to enable us to bring on board some support from external consultants. We've been out to a public tender, and following a comprehensive assessment, the tender from the Copy Collective is considered to present the best value for council, and it's on this basis it's recommended that council awards that contract. So the recommendation to council this evening is that council awards contract 211-2501, communication services for capital works projects, to the Copy Collective to the amount of $232,000 GST exclusive.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Moved. Councillor Forsyth. Seconded. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Forsyth.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Jeremy, the contract price, is that for a 1 year or 3 year, or I missed it if you actually said it. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. That's for a 3-year period, which is the duration that we'll be delivering the funded projects over.
All right. And this group will, Copy Collective, they will be advising the asset management team.
That's right. They'll be engaged by Council's asset development team. They'll essentially prepare draft communications to go out, and that will then be passed through our communications in-house resource, who will then vet it, and then it'll be passed through to Charlie for sign-off as per our usual process.
Thank you. I noticed that communication services is probably another euphemism for spin doctor, but I'm not quite sure. No.
Madam Mayor, if I could respond to that last comment. So some of the material we've seen in their proposal is really impressive, and what's impressive about it is how clearly it articulates the projects and conveys, and I think when council and the community see it, I think they'll see the benefits. But importantly, as Mr. Jeremy pointed out, like that we can be missing opportunities to engage with our community if we just limit ourselves to the current in-house resource we have while we've been so incredibly successful to get funding for all these projects.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Jeremy, I think this kind of initiative shows really good planning for what lies ahead in terms of a record capital investment period and capital works period. And I know the desire of project managers to get on and build and to get on and do things. So I think in advance, thinking strategically about how we best involve our communities in the process and contributing to decisions there is really astute. So I'm very supportive.
Thank you. Do any other councillors have a comment? Yes, Councillor Janis.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We're delivering approximately $17 million worth of capital works this year in our budget. Our next year, sorry. Our communications team, I don't think it's not even a one FTE. So you know, we have you know, we'd like to engage the public more so that they know what is occurring. So I think this is an effective way to keep the public involved and in the loop of what's happening, and also offers a way to give feedback, hopefully in an efficient manner. And I like the way that it's been put together with all the projects together, and a little bit comes out of each, so into one group. Will they be operating from our headquarters in Bright, or will they be remote?
They're based in Melbourne.
And part of the contract price is that they will attend up here as required for each project that they need to communicate with?
That's correct. So they've already had a visit up here, but also they'll visit as required. But we anticipate that the majority of the work will be delivered out of their Melbourne office with communication with our team.
Thank you. Anyone else? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 9.2.3, and I will note that Councillor Kelly leaves the room at 5:26 p.m. He's left. Mr. Jeremy, Big Hill car park ceiling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to the award of a contract for civil works at the Big Hill car park off the Bogong High Plains Road in Mount Beauty. The works include drainage, pedestrian safety and parking upgrades, and includes ceiling works to the car park. So the background to this project is we were approached by the Team Mount Beauty some time ago, and they flagged a number of issues that they asked for some support in addressing in the Big Hill car park. So some of these were significant drainage problems, resolving the entrance angle, which was causing vehicle damage to vehicles entering into and exiting the car park, improving pedestrian safety within the car park, improving turning circles, and sealing and formalising some of the parking bays. The car park works that we're proposing to deliver on this contract are complementary to some works which were recently undertaken by Team Mount Beauty in the car park, which involved the installation of a retaining wall in the car park. We've tendered the works publicly, including advertising on tenders.net, Alpanshire Council website, and we got 6 downloads and we only got 1 conforming response. So we've assessed that response, we've compared it to the internal estimate which was prepared by our engineering staff, and following the assessment of the tender it was determined that the tender from North East Civil Construction best met the requirements of the selection criteria. So the recommendation this evening is as noted that Council awards contract 2114701 for the Big Hill car park ceiling to North East Civil Construction for the lump sum price of $234,440.34. And it's noted that that is fully funded by funds from the federal government through the local roads and community infrastructure programs, so rounds 1 and round 3.
Councillor Kiwa and Councillor Hughes. Thank you very much. Councillor Kiwa.
Thanks, Mayor Nicholas. The Big Hill car park is an area in Mount Beauty or Upper Kiva Valley that's used by a lot of different people, not just bike riders. There's walkers that park there and go for a walk their dogs or walk around. And then there's also events. So having that car park sealed with proper drainage will solve a range of issues. Team Mount Beauty and Mount Beauty people have done a great job in that area with the money that they've received over the recent years with the works they've done. So this complements that with this funding that they've got. So that's great.
Hughes.
I think an improvement in this type of infrastructure is always, going to be a value add, especially with the increased use with the different user groups, as Councillor Keeble has mentioned. So I think that getting it right and doing it in this way is definitely going to be that value add that we need in this space.
Any further discussion?
Yep.
Councillor Janice.
Yeah, I think this is a great compliment to Team Mount Beauty, and being able to work with council and council being able to work with community groups to achieve an overall positive outcome for an area. So, if we don't control everything necessarily, but we have to work with our groups and communities so that we come to that one great outcome. And this is an example of that, I believe. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from my councillors? No? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Kelly has returned to the room at 5:31 p.m. Thank you, everybody. 9.2.4, Tom's Road, road discontinuation, road deviation and land exchange.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to advise Council's intention to discontinue a road to carry out a road deviation and land exchange at Tom's Road in Tuwanga South. Tom's Road is a 1.6 kilometre road and is maintained by the Alpine-Shire Council. A contract for the upgrade of Tom's Road was awarded at the February 2022 Council meeting. During the scoping phase of the project, it was identified that the formed road, so the physical road, is not located entirely within the road reserve, and that private infrastructure has previously been constructed within this road reserve and with the endorsement of council officers in the past. Over a long period of time, extensive consultation has been undertaken with the landowners, and survey work has been undertaken to establish the correct title boundaries and to determine the land areas impacted and subject to road discontinuance and land exchange. So, in summary, this is a bit of an administrative item, but what we're doing is moving the road reserve so that it's located on top of the physical road, in a nutshell. So it involves discontinuing a section of road, some land exchange, and then re-establishing a road in the right place. So that's what we're seeking tonight. It's all regulated by...
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Janis, and seconded by Councillor Keeble. Councillor Janis.
As Mr Jeremy said, this is an administrative item predominantly. The officers have been working on this project in conjunction with landholders for about 8 years now, I understand, at least. And all credit to them that they've come up with a solution that suits all for a minimal cost, except the officers' time, which I wouldn't want to count how many hours have been put in for that, but it's been an ongoing problem for a number of years. We've got a solution. I won't get Mr Jeremy to read out all the recommendation. I take it as read by councillors who've done the homework, and we'll leave it at that.
Councillor Keeble.
I think this is a good outcome. There's been some civil works on that road with some funding in recent years, and I thank the council officers for sorting through this particular issue. It's good to clean this kind of stuff up in our shire, and hopefully there's not too many more like them.
Other comments? Discussion? No, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item is 9.2.5, Local Economic Recovery Fund, Kiwa River Trail Extension.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report seeks Council's endorsement to submit a funding application for the detailed design and construction of the Kiwa River Trail Extension in Mount Beauty. So the final round of the Local Community Projects Grants, which is funded under Local Economic Recovery Programme of Bushfire Recovery Victoria, will fund local projects that are vital for community recovery in bushfire-affected regions. Funding is jointly provided by the Australian and the Victorian governments, and it's administered by Bushfire Recovery Victoria. Key objectives of the fund are to increase employment opportunities, decrease skill shortages, increase business capacity and economic opportunity, increase visitor confidence in the region, improve community well-being, restore or improve the natural environment. Those are largely the ones. So we've assessed the projects within Council's project pipeline which meets the grant funding criteria and which are sufficiently mature to be able to put forward for funding. And we've discussed these with Bushfire Recovery Victoria, and following that assessment it's recommended that an application is made for funding to deliver the detailed design and the construction of the Kiwa River Trail Extension project.
Moved, Councillor Forsyth. Seconded, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Forsyth.
This is just, sorry, if we're successful with the application, Mr Jeremy, I'm assuming it would be in the pipeline in 23, 24?
That's correct, yes. If we're successful, then we've got until June 2023 to deliver it from recollection.
June 2023?
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
1 year, okay.
Yes.
And that's still...
Sorry, correct myself, 31st of December 2023, as noted in the report.
So this will be in addition to what we have already committed to with our $15 or $17 million worth of in
That's
addition
correct,
to...
yes.
Can we fit it in?
We see there's a bit of a balance here, so you're right, there's a deliverability challenge for council officers. However, we also see this is one of the remaining opportunities to secure bushfire funding, and it's the final round of the LER funding, and we're not aware of future rounds of bushfire funding. So we believe it's a good opportunity, despite the challenges we've got with the size of our programme. It's a good opportunity for council to secure some funding for a key community project.
I agree. Thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Nicholas. I'm not going to say it's stage 3 of the development, Mary, but I certainly agree and endorse the application. People up Upper Kiwa Valley would love to see the Kiwa River Trail extended at least to Dams Road there, and it'd be terrific to be successful in getting this funding for that.
Councillor Kelly with a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Jeremy, it's noted the adjacent landowners were consulted or engaged in the scoping exercise. Are they supportive?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Not all of the adjacent landholders are supportive of the project. However, the project is being delivered entirely on public land, so that's either land owned by council or that is Crown land. We've engaged with DELP, and we've got DELP's support to deliver the project as it's currently proposed.
Thanks, Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Discussion? Okay, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Good, I'm glad to see that. Next item is 9.2.6, Alpine Better Places, Tawonga.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report relates to the next steps in the Alpine Better Places Tuwanga project. I've outlined in the report the background to this project. The project was placed on hold in August 2021, which was pending a decision by Council relating to the purchase of the Tuwanga Scout Hall. Purchase of the Tuwanga Scout Hall was finalised in January 2022, which has cleared the path for the work on the project to recommence. So this project is about the next step. This report is about the next steps in that project. I've outlined in the report a number of issues that we need to work through with the next phase of the project. So the first one relates to the existing building, the existing Tuwanga Scout Hall. So at the August 2021 council meeting, council invited submissions from the public on a proposal to purchase the property. And in that report, we very clearly outlined that the building itself was in a very poor condition, and there was a significant amount of work and a significant cost associated with the work to bring that building back into commission. So we flagged that at the time that the purchase was first proposed. Subsequent to that purchase being finalised, we've had a further inspection of the building, which is carried out by an experienced building practitioner, and that has reached the same conclusion as the previous inspection that was carried out, and that is effectively that it would not be cost effective for council to deliver the improvements that would be needed to build that building to bring it back into commission. And if council desired to have a building on that site, it would be more cost effective to start from scratch and design and deliver a building that met the functional requirements that were determined to be required. So on the basis of the work that we've carried out, a recommendation to council tonight is that the existing Tuwanga Scout Hall building is demolished. So that's the first recommendation tonight. The second recommendation relates to what council's options are to deliver or to use the land for. And the proposal at this point is to go back out to the community as part of the ongoing engagement around the Tuwanga Alpine Better Places, and to go out with a number of concept design options which we've outlined in the report to essentially seek community feedback to help guide council in its decision as to what to do with the land. So the first option is some parkland, revegetation and some car parking. Option 2 is a new building and car parking with the variety of options for how that building could be used. Option 3 was relocation of the multipurpose playing courts to this area, and option 4 was a cycle pump track. So
I'll move it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Janis.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. Moved Councillor Janis, seconded Councillor Keeble. For those who didn't pick that one up, Councillor Janis.
Yes, thank you. Having read the report, I agree with the recommendation. And what it also does, it restarts the the process of consultation with the community as to do what? Has to do something with that site once the hall is demolished and taken away. So there are a number of options which we're not going to be considering tonight per se, but it'll restart that process for the community to continue their input into what they would like to see for Tuwanga Better Places. So this is just a step in the process.
Thanks, Mayor Nicholas. For anyone in Tawonga or Kiwa Valley that's watching this and likes that building and has seen that building for the last however many years, 60, 70, 80 years, I know there will be some people that will be disappointed that that building is being demolished. There's no doubt about that, and they've certainly raised that with me and others. I do agree with the fact that the building is not fit for purpose and it's at its end of life. The draft concepts, which there are 4 of, I'm going to assume that they're just the starting conversations, and there might be some other concepts that people come up with for the use of that land. But it is great that we've got that land. You know, people cannot build. You know, we bought the land. That was step 1. Step 2 is now to work through what to do with that. So I think there will be some people disappointed with that scout hall going because it's been iconic there, but it's what's happened. And I'm wondering, I know it's to be demolished. If a community member said, Mr. Jeremy, that they wanted to take it and put it on their land, can that actually happen? I don't know the answer to the question, I'm just asking.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. An interesting question. So what we would typically do in these circumstances is advise members of the community to engage with the demolition contractor once we had appointed them, and then it's really down to an engagement between those 2 parties to determine what options might exist.
Thank you. Does anybody like to comment further? No? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. 9.2.7 Tuwanga Community Hall upgrade. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report relates to the adoption of the preferred concept design for the upgrade of the Tawonga Community Hall. So in late 2020, the Tawonga District Community Association approached Council and they sought support from Council to apply for funding to upgrade the hall. So the TDCA, so the Tawonga District Community Association, had been unsuccessful in a funding application. They'd received some feedback from the funding body and they'd approached Council and asked whether Council would support them, either support them in applying or whether Council would apply on their behalf. So ultimately we worked together with the TDCA. We developed a detailed user requirement statement which was used as the basis for a funding application which Council then submitted, and ultimately we were successful in securing $850,000 worth of funding from Bushfire Recovery Victoria's local economic recovery programme. So that programme is jointly funded by the Australian and Victorian governments, administered by Bushfire Recovery Victoria. There are a number of technical issues which we've worked through as part of the design, but what I want to outline to you tonight is that we reached a point where we realised that there were different concept designs that were equally capable of fulfilling the user requirement statement. And the key variables were the location of the new amenities, which could either be external or internal to the existing building footprint, and the retention or the removal of the existing stage. The community requested that Council carry out an engagement step similar to Alpine Better Places to help work through that process, because there were some very differing opinions within the community about which way that decision should land. So Council carried out an engagement process. We essentially placed the 2 options, so option 1 being the external amenities and option 2 internal amenities out for public consultation, and ran a process to try and establish where the weight of public support sat. I've outlined the results in the report. So option 1, which was the external amenities, 74% of the feedback received was for the option 1, which is the external amenities, and 26% was for the internal amenities. Individual comments we received, I've outlined the responses that have been provided in this report. The stage, we received very strong support for the retention of the stage by the school and the childcare users. So, on the basis of the feedback that we've received from the community through both the survey and the comments that supported that, the recommendation to Council tonight is that Council adopts the concept design for the Tawonga Community Hall upgrade, which retains the stage and which establishes new amenities in a structure located outside the footprint of the existing building, with access provided from the foyer of the building.
Moved by Councillor Keeble and seconded Councillor Hughes. Councillor Keeble.
There we go. Again, for residents out there that might be listening, there will be some people that will be happy with this recommendation and some won't. But clearly the results from the survey indicate that a majority of people who are surveyed, certainly want to retain the stage and have the new amenities located outside. I mean, it's an amazing opportunity to start with, to have this much funding to secure the longevity of this hall. So when people see me at Tuwanga Community Hall, or when they see me at the old General Tuwanga store there, I'm happy to have a chat about it.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
The Bushfire recovery funds, this is something we've seen a lot of over the last couple of years, and we are very lucky to have the opportunity to be able to get these funds to upgrade our facilities. And I think the way to look at this is it is a facility upgrade, regardless of whether it was internal or external. This facility is getting these opportunities, and it's really important that the community consultation process happens and that voices are heard in this. So I am very grateful for the Bushfire Recovery Victoria for these opportunities. I have done many a dance concert on that stage, and I'm telling you, it is small, so I can understand, some of the opinions of the local residents in the area, but I think that either way we're looking at this as a facility upgrade, and I think it's going to be a positive.
Thank you. Any other councillors wanting to comment? Councillor Janis.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just put my Chair of Alpine Shire Community Resilience hat on, and this is a place of last resort, this building, and therefore, looking into our future, we should have facilities there, or proper facilities there, that can accommodate people if in need at that particular time. 850,000 is not something to be sneezed at, and it is a great opportunity that we've been able to get this to secure something for the community over there. Councillor Keeble can take all the questions as he goes to buy his paper, and Councillor Prime when she returns. But the responses, 74% for and 26% in the negative, they're pretty strong figures. So it's something we need to certainly consider, and I think I'd really like to see that finished product. When do we think we're going to get that one done, Mr. Jeremy?
I'd have to take that one on notice. We've got so many funded projects, I can't remember the deadline on that one, Councillor Janis.
Good luck with finding a tradesman at the moment.
Councillor Forsyth.
Yeah, look, just very briefly, I think from a logistics point of view, that the outcome to have the external building is probably the better one, and it's in keeping with most of the other halls that we actually see around the place. And probably also it would mean that there would be less disruption of the actual hall while it's being constructed if community groups were still using the hall at that point in time. So, yeah, great outcome.
Councillor Keeble.
If I may, Mayor Nicholas, it says the building is external, but people will be accessing it internally. That is correct, isn't it? Yes. With an all-access facility, as well as showers and toilets.
Thank you. Any more questions, clarity? No. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Great. 9.2.8, Draft Asset Plan 2022-2031.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report relates to the adoption of the Draft Asset Plan 2022-2031 for public exhibition. So the Section 92 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires all Victorian councils to develop, adopt and keep in force an asset plan. So this is a new requirement under the 2020 Local Government Act. Plan must be adopted by 30th of June 2022. So this plan is a strategic document. It informs the community about how council's infrastructure assets will be managed and maintained to support achieving the community vision and the council plan objectives. The plan must cover a minimum period of at least the next 10 financial years, and it must include information about maintenance, renewal, acquisition, expansion, upgrade, disposal and decommissioning.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth and Councillor Keeble. Councillor Forsyth.
This is just to endorse for it going out for public, seeking public submissions. So council is going to get another look at that, and I do invite anybody in the public, when they do look at this asset plan, to please give some feedback on it, and then we can make an informed decision later on.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, just to add, thinking about our assets and the long-term maintenance of those is what this kind of document is about, and I think it's really important to proactively plan what the costs and what the needs are to maintain our growing asset base as we move forward. So I very much endorse this for people to review.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Hughes.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. When you go out for public consultation, we want the feedback. So please provide it. It's, this is the opportunity. If you know of someone that might be of interest in this one, pass it on, mention it. We put it out for a reason. I've provided my feedback on it. And I think it's, it is putting in the plan for the next 10 years. I'm assuming, Mr. Jeremy, that it is reviewed regularly in that time frame.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. So the requirement is for it to be reviewed every 4 years following the election of a new council. However, our intention is to have a look at it in the intervening period if there's been significant changes that we believe it's important that we capture in that plan.
Any further questions or discussion? No. I'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 9.2.9, plant and fleet purchases.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report relates to a commitment to the purchase of priority plant and fleet for the 2022-23 Capital Works programme ahead of the annual budget being adopted for the next financial year. So COVID pandemic has resulted in significant and ongoing supply chain interruptions. So as an example, some of the commitments we made to the purchase of plant and fleet during this financial year we made early in the year, and there are still items that we don't have a confirmed delivery date for, that we've already placed the order for back at the start of the year. The conversations with suppliers have indicated that delivery timeframes for plant and fleet haven't improved, and for a number of the plant and fleet items listed in the proposed budget for next year, suppliers at this stage are unable to provide an indication of delivery timeframes. So we think the problem this coming financial year will be at least as bad as we're seeing in the current financial year, if not worse. So this has caused us a number of issues. So we've had a shortage of vehicles within our pool fleet because some of the vehicles we've had failures and requirement to take them out for maintenance, and that impacts on the ability of our staff to deliver services, and also within the plant and fleet that's operated by our open spaces and civil works crew, we've had some breakdowns and failures then. So we've struggled a bit this year, and what we'd like to do is get on the front foot next year by placing the orders for identified plant and equipment in the council report essentially before the end of the financial year.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Janus and seconded by Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Janus.
I think this is a good strategy for strategic planning going forward for our plant and equipment. We all know how we rely on our mowers and vehicles to make our council and Shire look spick and span in the tourist industry. There's nothing worse than hopping on a mower and it doesn't work. It's very.
That's why you've got 4 of them at home.
That's why I've got 3.
3. One works.
No, they all work. But as we know, the supply chain, we all know that. So it's just smart thinking. That's all. It takes a few headaches away from the poor staff who are trying to cope with something that's not working properly. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Janus. Councillor Forsyth.
Yes, only one question. I'll endorse everything Councillor Janus has said, but the other thing is the Kiwa Valley L2P vehicle. Are we looking at a hybrid for that one?
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. So at this stage, the plan is to purchase a hybrid vehicle for the L2P replacement. However, there is an option, should Council seek to purchase an EV instead. There is that option.
Would that be extra funding or come under this one?
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. So there would be an additional cost to Council if Council was wishing to purchase an EV for the Mount Beauty fleet. The other consideration which is worth taking into account is learner drivers typically will progress into a petrol vehicle as their first vehicle, and my understanding, based on feedback from the Mayor, is that there are different characteristics driving an electric vehicle from a petrol vehicle, and it may be considered preferable for learners to be learning on a vehicle which is similar to the one which they're more likely to start learning to drive in rather than an EV. So at this stage, the recommendation from Council officers is to purchase a hybrid for that vehicle.
And is your thought process then go to the fact that it should be a manual?
The way we've managed manual versus automatic in the past is for us to engage with external suppliers when there's a need to provide people with experience in a manual vehicle. So the L2P vehicles that we have at the moment are automatic vehicles, which is what's needed for people to pass their test.
Thank you.
Here we go. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. The L2P driver program is a fantastic program. As a former volunteer myself, the surprising bit was the opportunity to connect with people outside of my demographic or an age group and contribute in that way, not only to clocking up the hours on the road. Mr. Jeremy, one question regarding the fleet supply, and sorry, I did want to acknowledge the Mount Beauty and District Bank and also the Upper Kiwa Valley Lions Club for their contribution to that program before I get lost there. But just one question on the fleet, Mr. Jeremy, and supplies. Do we run a competitive process in terms of when we're seeking suppliers for our plant?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Absolutely we do. So we run a competitive process. We try where possible to leverage off the back of other procurement that's been carried out by, for example, the state government. So they run a competitive tendering process. Where the requirements of that process meet or exceed Council's requirements under the procurement policy, we will piggyback on the back of that. Where we find that they don't meet or there are nuances or differences, we will always follow the more stringent, if that's Council's policy.
Thanks, Mr. Jeremy.
Councillor Kiwa.
No worries. You've asked all the questions on the LTP, so thank you. My other question was, the wide area mower. Is it a replacement one? Is it a new one? If it's a new one, where are the other ones going?
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. The councillors who've been here since the previous term may recall that we chose to trial the use of a Toro in the Kiwa Valley. So previously we only had a Toro in Myrtleford and Bright, and when we came to renew the Bright Toro, we decided to trial it in the Kiwa Valley, and that trial has been a success. So we've been operating a Toro in the Mount Beauty, in the Kiwa Valley, Bright and Myrtleford. and the recommendation is that we continue to operate those 3 Toros. So what we're proposing tonight is a renewal of an existing Toro. However, if you roll the clock back a few years previously, this would be seen as a new piece of plant, if that makes sense. That's correct. There'll be 1 in each area. There is currently 1 in each area, and there will remain 1 in each area. And sorry, the second part of your question is what happens to the old ones. So we will divest them in a way that delivers value for council. So typically we secure a number of trade-in values for the vehicles, and then we'll either go out through Grays Online and allow the open market to bid, or if we know that there's local interest, so for some of our plant and fleet there's local interest, we may run an expression of interest process, but we would always establish the trade-in value first so that we're able to ensure that we're getting value for money for council if we go through a local disposal route.
Anything further? No. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We move on to 9.2.10. Mount Beauty Airport Urgent Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report relates to variations to the Mount Beauty Airport upgrade project. So I'll just roll the clock back a few months. At the October 2021 council meeting, Winslow Constructors was awarded a contract for the Mount Beauty Airport upgrade construction. The basis on which that contract was awarded was for an asphalt seal of the runway. And councillors might recall we had very competitive pricing on the tender, and it allowed us the opportunity to explore the use of an asphalt surface, whereas the original spec for the runway was for a spray seal surface. So back in October, we were confident we could deliver the project in budget. We evaluated the option and recommended to council, and council subsequently accepted the recommendation to award an asphalt seal. We started stripping back topsoil and excavating, and we found that the ground conditions were poorer than we had anticipated, and that forced us to come back to council at the February 2022 council meeting to seek a variation for works to treat that poor subgrade to bring it up to the specification standard. At the same meeting, we presented a recommendation to vary the contract to enlarge the apron and to widen the runway. So this had been a recommendation from the Mount Beauty Airport Management Association to improve serviceability and safety of the airport operations. So that was February 2022. Roll the clock forward now to April. We've continued to work on the project, and as we've continued to work on the project, the condition that we found the subgrade to be in has exceeded even our worst expectations. So what we're faced with at this stage is a need to vary the contract further to further address very poor subgrade conditions, and there's a few particular areas on the runway where it's particularly bad, and we've run through a revised design process to get to the point where we've got a design which we're confident can address the problems. However, there's a cost associated with these additional works. So one of the recommendations tonight to council relates to the addressing the subgrade condition, and that's a recommendation to vary the contract to allow us to complete the works as redesigned in order to achieve the specification. The other part of this evening's recommendation relates to that decision that we made back in the October 2021 council meeting to revert to an asphalt seal on the runway. So we did that at the time. We changed from the contract specification, which was a spray seal, to an asphalt specification because we had an opportunity presented by competitive pricing. However, what we find ourselves now is in a position where if we retain an asphalt seal to the runway, we will be unable to deliver the project within the budget that council has previously approved in the previous council meetings. So it presents options. One option is to proceed with the asphalt seal as awarded to the contractor, with council covering the cost of that asphalt seal, the difference between the spray seal and the asphalt. The other option is to revert back to the original design specification, which is for a spray seal on the runway. So I've outlined in the report that I'm presenting to you tonight, those different options, and the recommendation from council officers is that we revert back to the original specification, which is a spray seal on the runway. We have engaged with the Airport Management Association in Mount Beauty, and the Airport Management Association is supportive of the approach that we're proposing to take, and they recognise that the most important deliverable for the project is to get the subgrade right on the runway, and that, a spray seal on the runway as per the original design specification is acceptable to the Management Association. So the recommendations being presented tonight are twofold. The first is that Council approves a variation for contract for the Mount Beauty Airport upgrade to Winslow Constructors for the upper limiting value of $458,169 for treatment of the runway extension subgrade to meet the design specifications. And a second recommendation that Council approves a further variation to the contract for the Mount Beauty Airport upgrade construction for the lump sum reduction in price of $301,607 to revert to a spray seal runway surface as per the original design specification.
Moved Councillor Keeble, seconded Councillor Janis. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mr. Jeremy, for bringing this to our attention over the last week. We've had some, several good briefing on this. We know that there's been some issues with the subgrade that, from what I can tell and from the questions I asked, was just unfortunate in regards to the geotech did everything to the specifications, and in between where the holes were dug, there were some areas that were found. Areas that meant that the runway would not have been stable without fixing those areas. We all know about, in this area anyway, about railways and subgrades. So it is really important to get that subgrade right. So I agree with that. Having spoken to members of the committee, airport committee, they are supportive of the spray seal. Yes, everyone would like to have the the gold seal, but the spray seal for the type of runway will suffice in the meantime. My question is timeframes.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. So at this stage, based on the feedback from our construction contractor, we believe it remains possible to deliver the project before we head into winter. However, there is a caveat that that's dependent on weather conditions predominantly remaining favourable through to the end of the season.
Councillor Janis.
Thank you. Look, this is an engineering problem. It is unforeseen. I think the staff and the company, the geotechnical company, have done the best that they can within the standards, and we're still going to get the airport done. I must say, I would have liked to have seen the better seal done, but rather than gold standard, we're back down to silver standard on this one. The important thing is that the safety of the aircraft is paramount, and that's not going to be an issue with a spray seal. It's what happens under the ground that is important, and that is being addressed. So we're not going to hopefully see any disasters occur because we've had to script back a bit. It's not going to cost the ratepayer any more by reverting back to the spray seal, which was our original intent. Just we took hold of that opportunity to do it a little bit better. Something's come up. That's the way it is.
Thank you, Councillor Janis. Do any other councillors want to talk to or against the motion? No. All those in favour? Will be carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Jeremy, for your input and your reports tonight. Now we move over to Mr. Helen Havercroft. Mr. Charlie Bird, who's standing in for Ms. Havercroft this evening. And our first item is 9.3.1, dinner plan special rate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first item, Council may declare a special rate for the purpose of defraying expenses of performing a function that is a special benefit to the persons required to pay the special rate. The purpose of this report is to recommend that public notice is given of a proposed declaration of a special rate for the dinner plane for the Dinnerplain Village applicable to the commercial and industrial land in the next financial year. So for some time, the Dinnerplain Village has been subject to a special rate to defray the expenses associated with the services. Some of these services include the bus between Dinnerplain and Mount Hotham, the clearing of snow on roadways, cross-country grooming of cross-country trails, marking event support, and also the maintenance of cable television at Dinnerplain. Also of note is that this special rate used to be much greater, much higher at Dinnerplain than what is being proposed this year, next year, and what has been in place for about 5 years now. The expenses associated with, the income that will be gained from there, will be raised from the special rate is $177,000 over this 12-month period, which is significantly less than the costs associated with this, which is just over $650,000. Under Section 163 of the 89 Local Government Act, Council must give public notice of its intention to make a special rate declaration at least 28 days before the declaration. And also under Section 223 of the 89 Act, a person has a right to make a submission on the proposed special rate and can be asked to be heard as well. So in concluding, it is recommended that Council give notice of the intent to declare a special rate of 143% of the general rate of rateable properties for next financial year, and it is recommended that Council adopt the recommendation as read.
Moved Councillor Keeble, second Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Nicholas. The special rate for those that are out in TV land out there, YouTube land, whatever it's called. The money is gathered and is spent in Dinnerplain. That's what the idea of the special rate is, and it's been around for a while. And it has decreased, as has been said by the CEO. My question is, the Dinnerplain to Hotham winter bus service, we extended the contract for how long? Is it end this year?
My understanding is that this is the final year of the contract. That's correct. One other point I'd just like to make that I didn't make clear in that the 143% is the same as what a commercial industrial property pays across the rest of the Shire. So in effect, this special rate treats them the same as other rate payers across the rest of the Shire. Councillor Kiwa, did you have another question?
No, that's fine.
Councillor Forsyth.
I'm glad that the Acting Director of Corporate actually made that last clarification, because that was what I was going to say.
Well done. Any other comments or questions from councillors? No? Take that one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you.
Before we move on, Mr. Burt, can I please turn the air conditioner off? I'm freezing.
Like ice, James.
I don't know where it is, but I am so cold.
I've got to jump in.
Sorry. I got halfway through. I just can't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Oh, that's better already.
Okay, as we all warm up then, we'll move on to 9.3.2, the draft 22-23 budget report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to present the draft budget for the Alpine Shire Council for next financial year. So based on ongoing community consultation and in accordance with, this budget has been prepared based on ongoing community consultation, and it also aligns with Council's community vision and Council Plan 21 to 25. So through strong cost management, this budget provides a prudent financial position which enables Council to deliver the critical services and projects for its community, and also puts in a position to adapt and respond to unforeseen changes in the future, which I think we can all agree there has been many of those in recent times. So The draft annual budget projects a surplus of $8.1 million, which is influenced by a rate increase of 1.75%, which is in line with the Victorian Government's Fair Go rate system, which caps Victorian Council rate increases in line with inflation. The Capital Works program is forecast in the budget is totalling nearly $18 million, and which is a significant capital works program, and relatively similar to the capital work program that Mr. Jeremy's team is delivering this year as well. So this is more than twice what would have been a typical year for Alpine Shire Council, so very significant. And this has been made possible through external funding, which is up to $9 million for these capital grants. There's a decrease in the materials and services budget, and that relates primarily to the reduction or the cessation of the Bushfire Recovery Department, which is likely to, which will finish partway through this financial year, which is a fully funded department by the state and federal government. And also, importantly, there will be a temporary increase, a further increase in staffing levels to respond to increase the capacity to allow us to deliver these projects for our community, which we've been successful in securing funding for. So look, there's a number of really important capital works projects which are outlined in the budget here. So there's the Dinner Plain Activation Project, the Darga High Plains Road upgrade, there's some large landfill rehabilitation projects too, and then there's a number of the early stages of projects like the Myrtleford Savoy Soccer Club upgrade, Myrtleford Splash Park, some really important projects here. I guess another highlight of the budget also is around the climate initiatives as well, which will allow Council to meet its target of having net zero emissions by July 2023. So there's an upgrade for Mount Beauty Stadium renewable energy. There's the Bright Office electric vehicle charging station, which will be essential for us to be able to actually go to a electric vehicle fleet, and the upgrade to the street lights as well. And importantly, in next financial year, Council will be undertaking the preparation work to set itself up to have a curbside food organics, green organics curbside collection service. Other highlights, look, I guess just to reinforce, Alpine Shire Council continues to have no debt or no need for debt, which is a really good position to be in. We have a working capital ratio forecast to be of nearly 4, which is really strong. In terms of consultation, so this part where under the 2020 Act, the consultation for the budget must be in accordance with our community engagement policy. And at the same time, I just referred to the Dinner Plain special rate, which is under the old Act, and referred to a 28-day exhibition period. So what we're doing is we're in this interesting period there where we've got 2 acts where we're working under. But so what we're going to do is mirror the engagement process for the budget to be consistent with what's in the rate for the Dinner Plain special rate declaration as well, to align the two. And importantly, there's a period there where the community can review the draft budget report and make a submission, and if they would like to be heard, they can notify Council with their submission and present their submission to Council at a further date. It is recommended that Council adopt the draft budget as read.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. Seconder. Councillor Keeble.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's face it, the recommendation before us is to give public notice of the preparation of the draft budget and to actually invite written submissions. I feel absolutely confident that Council, when they sit on June the 7th, will debate this extensively. I will point out and just reiterate what the CEO has pointed out for all those people out there that will make submissions. Bear in mind that Council is hamstrung a little bit with the 1.75 rate increase, and also that we are facing a very, very large capital works program next year, which we have funding for already. So if you have a brilliant idea, please don't want it next year, maybe want it in 2 years' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Keeble.
Thanks, Mayor Nicholas. Big thank you to the Shire for putting together the draft budget. There's a lot of work that gets involved, and when do we start on it? You know, February. Well, no, we start later than you do, but you know, it goes on for a while. It's the single most important document, I think, anyway, that we do every year. That's what we're in charge to do, to get that right. The 1.75 rate increase is in line with the government capping. My question is around that, is that over the last 2 years, especially in the last 12 months, people's houses, their value has skyrocketed. When was our last valuation done? And I'm just forewarning ratepayers that if your house has gone up a fair bit, I'm just doing the math.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. So I believe the last valuation was done around February this year. And so the rate capping means that our revenue from rates cannot increase more than 1.75% as a whole. The valuation that's done on an annual basis, it determines how much the rates for that property go up, and it's relative. So let's say that all the properties, the value of all the properties in Alpine Shire rose by the same amount in 1 year. You know, Dinner Plain, Myrtleford, Dedarang, Bright, everyone's rates would go up by 1.75%. But we know that's not how it works. So if Councillor Kelly's property in Bright went up by 25%, but Councillor Kiwa, your property in Tuwanga only went up by 10%, then relatively, Councillor Kelly's rates would go up more than 1.75, and yours would go up by a lesser amount. It can be such that the property changes are so large that some people can actually experience a reduction in rates, prices. I know it's hard to believe for people out there that that's actually possibly, but it does happen. We don't get feedback on that typically, but that's how it works. I hope I've explained that. Often it can be difficult to explain and difficult to understand.
No, I think that's a good explanation. I don't know how many people are listening, but that bit about the two areas that you mentioned, it doesn't matter what areas they are, that's actually what happens. So rates are an interesting beast. I just wanted to point that out, that people's properties have gone up and things have changed a little bit. I have no further questions.
Do other councillors have a question or comment? No? We will take the draft budget report item to the vote. All those in favour? That'll be carried. Excellent. Moving right along to Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of the report is to present the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meetings held on 26th of November 2021 and the 8th of February 2022. The key items that were considered by the Audit and Risk Committee at these meetings included the Amendment 1 Shared Services, Local Government Act 2020 implementation and the management of road assets and the Risk Management Framework Policy and Register update. It is recommended that Council receive the notes and minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes for the 26th of November 21 and 8th of February 2022.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Janus and Councillor Kelly. Councillor Janus.
No, nothing further to add.
Councillor Kelly.
Probably second to the, thank you Mayor, probably second to the budget is the pointy end of how the organisation is operating, and there's no greater, I guess, probity and transparency in that than through the Audit and Risk Committee. So an important governance framework, and I very much support the work that the team's doing there.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Any further comment? Take that to the vote then. All those in favour? Carried. 9.3.4, Bright River Pool Slide Replacement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to detail the issues with gathering incident data and comprehensive feedback as a result of a severely restricted summer school holiday period we've had, and the proposal to delay a decision to determine if council replaces the Bright Riverpool slide until May 2023. So if we just recap on the background on this matter, there was an assessment of the Bright Riverpool operation undertaken by Life Saving Victoria in August 2021, and the findings and recommendation of their report, along with legal advice that council obtained around the operations, were presented to council in a report in September 2021 council meeting. And at that meeting, council adopted a motion that council remove the slide located at the Bright Riverpool prior to November 2021 and progress the investigation to replacement of the slide with a compliant alternative and report back to council at the December 2021 ordinary council meeting. So probably at this point it's important to clarify that, because there were two slides at the Bright Riverpool area there. There was, I'll call it the silver slide that came down the bank, and then there was the rotary slide which used to be green. Is it still green? It's still green. Okay. And so that's on which rotary run, and you pay money to use that, and it's all those funds go towards rotary. So a great social enterprise there. So we're talking about the silver slide, which was the one that came down straight down the bank. So let's go back to the background. So the existing slide, the silver slide, was removed in October 21, and investigation into an alternate compliance slide were undertaken, and it was established that a compliance slide could be sourced. And at the December council meeting, council adopted the following motion: to undertake an assessment of the operation of Bright Riverpool over the summer, including the incident data, feedback from the community and businesses, to understand what was the impact of not having the slide in place, and report back at the March 2022 council meeting. So firstly, firstly to acknowledge we're at the April council meeting, not the March council meeting, so apologies for coming to council a month later. I guess the reason for a proposal to recommend the council delay a decision is around this disrupted season. So it hasn't been a usual season, so we've had the impacts of COVID, and it's also been unseasonably wet season as well, which meant high river levels through that period as well, which mean there was less usage. Also during this period where we have lifeguards over the summer holiday period, there was only 15 days where we had lifeguards due to the lifeguard shortage that many councils experienced across the state, and suspect New South Wales as well. And so through this we haven't sought broader feedback as well from businesses because of this disrupted season. And so in summary, we don't feel as though we can provide the information for council to make a considered decision on this. And so I guess in summary, given these impacts, it is recommended that council delay the decision regarding a replacement slide until after the 22-23 summer holiday period, and undertakes an assessment of the operation of the Bright Riverpool over this same period, including incident data, feedback from the community and business and tourists regarding any impacts due to the absence of the slide, and report back to council at the May 2023 council meeting.
Moved Councillor Hughes, seconded Councillor Kelly. Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Putting this off as a delay means that there's still hope that we're going to get the silver slide replacement. So I'm all for delaying this decision. And for anybody that is watching back, I will be here next year to vote on the decision as well. No, look, in all honesty, we haven't had the normal summer that we intended to have. So in order to gather the data that we really need to make these decisions based on safety, and to be fair, we do need to have it. But just for, in that time frame that we wait, the rotary slide is there, it is upgraded, it is functional, and it is run by volunteers raising some good money too. So get out there and support them as well in this process. But yeah, I think it's a good decision to delay this until after the summer period.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I accept there's a strong emotional connection to the silver slide. In fact, in my appointment a couple of months ago, that was one of an old friend reached out saying, make sure you get the slide reinstated. What I don't really accept, though, is there is an economic benefit to the slide. I think I'd be amazed that there's an economic difference to the outcome for Bright by not having that slide. We'll let the data tell the story. I think the main takeout here is that, you know, if anyone has the appetite and capacity to register with Lifesaving Victoria, it's a 2-day course to register to be a lifeguard, and I'd encourage people to do that, because for me that's the main takeout from what played out in the most recent summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Lots of hears from down this end. Thank you, John.
Just one simple question, and that is in item number 2 there, including incident data, it would only be anecdotal now if any of those incidents were actually related to the slide, if we're getting a new report next summer. It's fine, yeah, only because there is no slide, so no incident.
So I guess that'll help answer the question whether there's been a reduction in incidents if the slide has been removed. So we have data from a previous season where we know there was a number of incidents associated with the usage of that slide.
Your data did actually say what was related to the slide and what wasn't related to the slide. Thank you.
So we have the reference point from when we had the slide there, yes.
Further questions? Comments? No? Take it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Recommendation? Carried. This is terrible, isn't it? 9.3.5. Punka Bridge Caravan Reserve Committee of Management.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank the gallery for their patience as we keep playing with our microphones and the squeaky sound, which gets very high-pitched noise. Thank you, Justin, as well, for doing your best, the roadie. Okay, the purpose of this report is to provide Council with relevant information to facilitate the consideration of the request from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, known as DELP, for Council to take over the Committee of Management for the Pupunka Bridge Caravan Reserve. So the Pupunka Bridge Caravan Reserve, let's go as the Caravan Reserve, is located at 36 Mount Buffalo Road. And it covers only 7 hectares, and it's got the standard caravan reserve amenities that you'd expect. It has a pool as well, playground, amenities, blocks, camp, kitchen, a residence, a manager's residence, and a number of powered sites, cabins and unpowered sites. So Council has been approached by DELP to take over the committee management of this reserve, and they have confirmed that the existing community management which is in place is also supportive of Council taking over this responsibility. For context, Council currently acts as a committee of management for 3 caravan reserves in the Shire: the Bright Holiday Caravan Reserve, the Myrtleford Holiday Caravan Reserve, and Tawonga Caravan. I'm not sure what's wrong with me. Caravan Reserve. This is called the Tawonga Caravan Park. And so at these reserves, we lease this to a caravan park operator, with the exception of Tuwanga Caravan Park, which we're currently upgrading, and the intent is to lease it to a third party. The Pupunka Bridge Caravan Reserve, it can hold up to 667 people, so quite a large number. As the Committee of Management, Council's primary obligation would be as a lessor of the lease of the Caravan Reserve, and the current lease commenced in April 2016 and has 15 years remaining. So within this lease, the lessee has a number of obligations which Some are completed and some are outstanding, which are identified in the report here. So probably the largest one is there an outstanding one there is the construction of a second campus kitchen. And whilst there are no specified capital improvements under the lease for the lessor, so which would be council if council took on the community management, there are general maintenance obligations and insurance obligations under the lease. Sorry, that's it with the lessee. So therefore, under the terms of the lease, the council has limited risk associated with a maintenance, repair or improvement of a capital nature. Having said that, there is a caravan reserve management plan which is currently in place and has been funded by the revenue from the lease. And so, as you'll see in the report, there's a number of items which have been completed, and there are items such as drainage and upgrades to roads, which are funded through that, and also one which is under development, is a new amenities block, which is $275,000. And councillors would be under no obligation to complete that under the lease, but there is an expectation from the current lessee that would be completed. So over the next 15 years of the remaining lease, council would receive an income, a net income of $2,291,700. So, and that's even after the $275,000 for that new amenities block is taken into account. So, in accordance with the Crown Land Reserves Act 1978, the revenue from a reserve is to be spent within that within that reserve, that Crown land. So the existing community management, any revenue from there is to be spent on that Crown reserve. However, that doesn't apply to councils unless directed to by the minister, which their direction hasn't been provided in this case. So of that revenue I referred to there, let's say call it the $2.3 million over the next 15 years, council would be able to use that across any Crown land in which they are responsible for. And so in terms of what I've talked about, so DELP, so council has been in consultation with DELP and the current community management, and the current lessee has also been consulted about this as well. So in closing, it's recommended that council accepts the request from DELP to become the community management for the Porpunka Bridge Caravan Reserve, accepts responsibilities of the lessor of the existing lease between the community management and the lessee, and enters into the necessary agreements to assume the responsibilities of the lessor or the lease. And I'd like to thank everyone for their patience as I tongue twisted my way through that one.
Moved, Councillor Janis. Seconded. Councillor Hughes, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bird. I suppose I'll go back a little bit in the fact that I always thought that we weren't in the business of managing caravan parks. But we've had I understand we've had a reasonable success in recently in leasing the Myrtleford Caravan Park to a private individual or company, and I think that's been successful from what I could see as I drive past it. So staff time. Can you give me an indication as to what extra staff time is going to be required to take on another one? So I've got 3, now we're going to have 4. Is that a question on notice for you, or can we handle that with all the other things that we've got going in that department? Oh.
Thank you, Councillor Janis. That's a really good question, and it's one which either we can accommodate with our existing workforce. We have made some minor changes to that department there that looks after that. So either it can be accommodated with the existing resource or some minor changes to it. It's the obligations are less than the income we've received from it. So it's the revenue would exceed the cost for council to fulfil its obligations.
Right. So it'll be cost neutral to us.
It'll be cost negative, which means revenue positive.
Okay, well, that'd be a good word. The unresolved building issues that we're aware of, the current lessee wants to do some more works there, and there are some roadblocks put up at the moment. Does that place us in an invidious situation trying to resolve that? Do we have to take up the baton on their behalf now of we're the Committee of Management? Should they want to pursue the works that they want to do there? Or is that still up to the lessee to continue to have conversation with other government departments?
It's a rather cryptic question there, Councillor Janice, but I think I know what you're referring to. It would be up to the lessee as the park operator to continue that. And so, council as the committee management would need to, for any development that the lessee wanted to undertake, council as the committee management would need to provide approval first for them to pursue, for the lessee to pursue any development.
Well then, would we have a conflict of interest as council if permits had to be issued, seeing as we're the Committee of Management?
So we currently have this situation for some of the other caravan parks we're the Committee of Management for, and we work through it. We just consider the applications on their merit. I'm happy to talk through more detail of these, probably offline though, Councillor Janice, more detailed way.
Yeah, look, I understand there's probably some commercial and confidence background there that we might not need to discuss at this forum, but yes, I still had some reservations about some of those questions, so that's why I thought I'd ask them now. But, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
My questions were asked by Councillor Janice, so thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bird, a couple of questions. Trying to further understand the risk and certainty around this opportunity. The Caravan Reserve Management Plan seems to be the key document around what council may have to commit. Who's the author of that plan, and how often is it renewed?
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. They're both two very good questions. I have to take them both on notice. I'll just have a guess at the author. I suspect it was one done by the Committee of Management. And in the current Committee of Management, the lessee is on that Committee of Management. So in effect, it was the lessee and the Committee of Management on that. If I hazard a guess, that I'm not sure of. And so I suspect that was then done in consultation with DELP as well. And I suspect they would have created it, and then DELP would have reviewed it. And so what was the first question?
And then what's the frequency for reviewing it? Yeah.
I don't know if there is a stipulated frequency for something like that. So, if I could answer it another way, in my experience where we have entered into long-term leases with third parties for reserves like this, so it's a 21-year lease, it's very clear around the committed capital expenditure of the lessee to upgrade the caravan park. And it's typically, there are upgrades and improvements which will benefit the operation and hence the revenue they'll get from that. So there's a lot of incentive for them to undertake those works. I'm less familiar with a caravan reserve management plan such as we have presented here.
Do other councillors have any questions? No? Take that one to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Sorry, it's carried.
Madam Mayor, should we call for a division just to record them?
Councillor Kelly has called for division, so all those in favour? Thank you. Who's taking the notes? And all those against? Thank you. The next item is 9.3.6, Harrietville Community Green Waste Facility Lease.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report relates to the leasing of council land, Lot D plan of subdivision in Harrietville for the purpose of the operation of a community green waste facility. So as some background here, so in October 2010, Council entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Harrietville Community Building Initiative Committee for the provision of land and mulching support for a community green waste facility off Newman's Lane in Harrietville. The objective of the MOU is to provide a secure and environmentally acceptable location for mulching and recycling of hard tree waste composed of garden pruning, tree cuttings and clipping and branches. So the MOU called for a formal review after 3 years. And in 2012, infrastructure at the facility was built through funding through the McPherson's Smith Community Alliance Trust, which was obtained by the Harrietville Community Forum. Moving forward to December 2018, following consultation with the Harrietville Community Forum, an extensive review of the operating model and facility, and continuing community support for the operations of the facility, Council entered into a lease with the Harrietville Community Forum for the continued use of the site for this purpose. And the lease was for a 2-year period, and Council provided an annual contribution of $3,000 to support the operation of this site. Moving forward to 2021, Council made a decision to increase the financial contribution of $5,000 after consideration of the increased volume of green waste and associated costs. And additionally, the lease was reduced to 1 year to allow for the potential introduction of the curbside food organics, garden organic service known as FOGO. And the possibility of this service would reduce the volume of materials to be received and processed at this site. So now we move to today. With the proposed introduction of the FOGO service in July 2023, it's proposed that a new lease be put in place with the Harrietville Community Forum and the end of that lease period align with the commencement of the FOGO service. So just to highlight, there's a number of times it's referred to in this report here around the lease being 2 years. However, that's different to the recommendations. To be clear, those are areas there which will be removed and they won't be included in the minutes. So the FOGO service is being, so Council expressed interest or sought feedback from the community about introducing the FOGO service a number of years ago, and shortly, or even while we're actually surveying the community, the Victorian Government announced the circular economy policy, which has now become the Recycling Victoria policy, which requires Council to implement a FOGO service. So it is proposed that under the proposed lease that Council contribute to the Harriedville Community Forum of $5,000 per annum or part thereof until that lease period ends, which proposing to align with the commencement of the FOGO service, which is planned to be on the 1st of July 2023. And so it is recommended that Council adopt the recommendation as read. There's one minor change to the recommendation I'd like to make to 1C, which is that replace the term of the lease be aligned with the commencement of the FOGO service, be changed to the end of the lease be aligned with the commencement of the FOGO service.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Keeble and Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Keeble.
Looking forward to FOGO. It's been a while. We've been talking about it. I know it's on its way. I'm looking forward to it. I know we're putting some strategies in. I'm happy to support Harriedville community on what they're doing with their green waste. It's good to see a community that is, working together on this problem, if you like, of food organics. And I think end of lease is the right terminology.
Councillor Forsyth.
Thanks, Mayor. This particular thing, the green waste facility in Harriedville, was a bit of a social experiment on Council's part, and I think it served its purpose over the time. There were some hiccups in the early years. However, I think that, and as Councillor Thiebel has said, with the introduction of FOGO, we won't actually need this facility in the future. So, yep, quite happy to do this.
Thank you. Further comments? No. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item is 9.3.7, Myrtleford Visitor Information Centre Relocation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report seeks council endorsement to relocate the Myrtleford Visitor Information Centre from its current location with the Alpine Gate Cafe building to the Myrtleford Memorial Hall. Excuse me. So the Myrtleford Visitor Information Centre is one of 3 information centres that council runs, accredited information centres, and it's largely run by volunteers. And I'd probably just like to note that the dedicated volunteers were recognised for outstanding contribution by the volunteers in the 2022 Victorian Tourism Awards, which was fantastic. But back to the report. So to maintain the accreditation with Victorian tourism industry, you need to be open for a minimum of 6 hours per day. And as a tenant, council cannot control the aspects of these operations, and this is particularly evident in the last few years when the Victorian government mandated heavily restricted normal operating hours of a cafe business. So the way it works is you have to walk through the cafe to get to the information centre. And if they've been told they can't open or it's too difficult for them to open, then they won't open. And if they don't have enough staff, because they're in isolation, the staff are in isolation, then that affects our operation of the information centre. So through this, council currently has a lease in place at this location, and it's been in place for 15 years. The current rent is $7,576 per annum, with outgoings of just over $4,500 per year. Importantly, the current lease expired on the 1st of January this year, and the arrangement we have in place now is a month-to-month lease agreement, which doesn't provide much certainty. So council has also, parallel to this, council has received funding to upgrade the Myrtleford Memorial Hall, which hasn't been used for a number of years, and it's been identified as a really good site for the alternative site for the Visitor Information Centre. Officers have looked at a number of alternative sites, and this is there's not too many suitable sites available in Myrtleford for this purpose. But the Myrtleford Memorial Hall has, through the renovation works, the upgrades being done, presents a great opportunity, and there's opportunity there to have wheelchair access there too. There's an increase in car parking in that location. We'll have control over the hours of operation. And also we'll have more certainty around about tenure as well. So in terms of
I'll move it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Janice. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Hughes. Councillor Janice.
Thank you. Look, this building, it needs something happening with it. It's been vacant for so long. It's an iconic building within Myrtleford. The community have asked for many years for something to happen there. We have spent many thousands of dollars, it'd be in the hundreds of thousands I think by now, in renovating the roof, the floors and areas around it, the electrical systems. So it's time for something. It's just a pity that there wasn't some plans, some visual plans for how it's going to be laid out to be presented for the public at the moment, because those plans will actually really enhance that building and what happens in there. So, you know, we have a very enthusiastic staff of volunteers in there. Our area is reliant on tourism. As a tourist myself last year in various small country towns, it was nice to go to a visitor information centre and get that first-hand local knowledge. Parking, I always thought may have been an issue, but clearly the staff have done the work on that, and in fact it's not an issue at all. With the number of RVs and caravans coming through town, there will be sufficient area for them to park, and it's probably good for them to get out of the car and stretch their legs and go for a bit of a walk should they want. So this is a real positive step to get that building back to some functionality. It's like anything, if it's not used and maintained properly, it'll just deteriorate. And we just don't want to keep throwing money at it because it's deteriorating without getting some return from it. So the point of not paying commercial rent on something, and the other aspects of the neighbourhood centre next door, there is potential in that building for further development to enhance the visitor information centre and the visitors' experience in the town of Myrtleford.
Thank you, Councillor Janice. Councillor Hughes.
The current location for the VIC has served its purpose, but this is going to enable us to utilise a facility of our own, which gives us greater control over how we use it, and that room for movement with our processes involved in that. My first question on this one was whether we had the support from the volunteers, because they are the heart and soul of this, and from a lot of feedback, the answer to that was a big yes. So I welcome the relocation of this, and I fully support, and I'm excited to see, you know, how that can change for Myrtleford Centre as well.
Yes, certainly. Mr. Jeremy, you're dealing with that. Could you flick down to the financial and resource implications, please? Thank you. First question is simply provide a total annual operating savings of approximately $12,266. However, I don't believe in this instance that you have applied a commercial rate to the premises of the Memorial Hall, even though we own it. Wouldn't that be a normal thing to do in this instance?
It's a very good question, Councillor Forsyth. So I refer you back to, we went through an expression of interest process for this building many years ago, I suspect about 5 years ago, and I don't recall getting a commercial, any of the expression of interest having a commercial rate there. We have other buildings in which council own and council lease, and we don't always get a commercial return. Having said that, there are some buildings we do where we have a commercial return. So your point is, I think your point is really valid there, that it would be unreasonable to assume that actually that's a full saving. And it's
Basically just on the books.
can I also add though, it says, look, there are other costs as well which haven't been determined in this report here. So I think it's just to be really clear, I don't think that council can bank the $12,500 saving there per annum. I think that is misleading. So very good point.
The second point is on the parking, which Councillor Janice alluded to, and that is the 160 within 100 metres. They're probably not visible to people, so I do believe that one of the things that we are lacking, I believe, in Myrtleford is direction to parking, and I believe that would be something that would, especially caravans and or those large Winnebago type things, they don't know where to go. I directed some people just the other day to where to park because they were trying to get onto Reform Hill and they were parking across someone's driveway at the time. So I believe that we do need some upgrading parking signage to direct people where to go. And a lot of that 160, I believe, are probably behind the, what is it now? What have we got? The discount shop? Reject shop, that's right. So a lot of them are in that area. So.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. Noted, and Mr. Jeremy's taken that action, and he'll be exploring that. And I just also caution there is a balance between having too much signage as well. But I take your point that if people don't know where to park, then they'll keep driving.
Or they go round and circles. Further comment? Councillor Janice?
Just following on from Councillor Forsyth's comments in relation to costs, I might suggest that we look at supporting some solar panels on the roof of that building, which is council owned, with that potential technology now for battery storage, which maybe could be shared with the neighbourhood centre next door. I mean, the potential is there. It's a beautiful big roof space, so I don't know how much we intend to pay for power on that site, but you know, it's got cross purposes there.
Thank you, Councillor Janice. That's a great suggestion, and another one for Mr. Jeremy to add to his. I know his team have already done a piece of work to explore about where they can do this, but I agree, it's a large roof there and it's a great opportunity. And yep.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor, and Mr. Jeremy, just building on that, I note we're saying the works at the hall will be done by 30th of June. Is there any update to that timeline? Or? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. That's still our expectation, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions, discussion? No? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item is 9.3.8, planning application in Service Street, Tuwanga.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before we move to this item, I'd just like to, I'm pleased, I've just had a look at our dashboard online, and that Mr. Jeremy's deadline there of 30th of June aligns with what we've got in our dashboard as well, so that's good to hear. Okay, on to item 9.3.8, planning application for 2935 Service Street in Tuwanga. So the proposal is for a 6-lot subdivision and native vegetation removal at the location I just identified, and it's in a township zone. So the first part is around native vegetation removal, which involves the removal of patch of wattles, an approximate area of 0.0009 hectares, which equates to 90 square metres. A third-party offset is proposed with vegetation sited in the proximity of 114 Station Street, set back approximately 40 metres from Station Street. The 6-lot subdivision, there are 6 lots. The first lot is a large lot, which has the existing dwelling associated shedding, and the other lots are smaller lots which front onto Station Street, of about ranging from 18 to 20 metres in frontage there. All the surrounding sites are zoned township zone within 5 sites of the subject site in all directions. Lot sizes range from approximately 267 square metres at 153 Station Street through to over 13,000 square metres at 8 McCulloch Street. And adjoining sites to the east contain an existing dwelling. So the application was advertised in accordance with the Planning Environment Act, and notice the application was sent to surrounding landholders and occupiers, and a sign was displayed on site. One objection was received and maintained, and the matters raised as part of the objection are outlined in the report, and then the planning officer's response are also detailed in the report as well. And in closing, it is recommended that a notice decision to grant a planning permit be issued for the proposal in accordance with the conditions outlined in the appendix of this report.
Moved by Councillor Hughes. You have a seconder? Councillor Janis. Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Talking on this point, it's a 6-lot subdivision, but it's 5 lots, with the 6th lot being the existing dwelling. In terms of the size of the lots, I feel that it's not out of character for Paul Punker, having a look at the surrounding areas, and I know that is, a concern of how small lots can get. There's a lot smaller than this in Paul Punker. I feel like this is, with Station Street being that main stretch through Paul Punker, this is, in line with what has been developed recently as well. So, new development is always going to be something that people want to discuss, and there's not always going to be people that agree with everything that goes on, but this is progression, and it's being done in a smart way, so that's my point.
Thank you, Councillor Janis.
Station Street has already got ribbon development along it. There's just an extension, basically, of that along the way. The lot sizes are considerably larger than what some of the subdivision, some of the areas that we've recently approved. I hope there's no intent of making them any smaller than that. I see no problem with this. The small lot of native vegetation there, although I don't like to see the removal of that native vegetation because of the habitat, but I'm sure that as these areas are developed, people will reinstall appropriate vegetation in on their lot anyway, so as is a normal sort of subdivision. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Janis. Are there any questions or comments? Further? No. Speak for or against? No. We'll take them into the vote then. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item I have a conflict of interest on, so I will leave the room 17 and hand over to my deputy. Councillor Hughes.
Item 9.3.9, planning application at 117 Centenary Avenue in Wandillagong. Mr. Bird.
Should we note that, Councillor Nicholas?
Thank you, Councillor Kiwa. Yes, the Mayor noted that. She left her departed at 7:10. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. So, this relates to proposal for the use and buildings and works for the construction of a dwelling carport at outbuilding at 117 Avenue, Wandillagong, which is in the farming zone. So the proposal the proposed dwelling is set back 15.6 metres from Centenary Avenue and 12.8 metres from the northern lot boundary, 9 metres from the southern lot boundary, and approximately 93 metres from the rear lot boundary. And interestingly, the subject site that we're talking about here was created as a result of a VCAT decision in 2018, in which the VCAT decision, the senior member made a statement that the current farming zone to the site is inappropriate. And given it's located in largely a township, so that is the relevance for this particular site. In terms of the site, surrounds land to the north, south and west is zoned farming and is also affected by the same planning overlays as the subject site, and land to the south and west contains a single dwelling. Land to the east of the site is Crown land and zoned public conservation and resource zone. The land contains substantial vegetation, both native and non-native. Further to the east is Mawson's Creek. So the application was advertised in accordance with the Planning Environment Act, and the application was sent to surrounding landholders and a sign displayed on site. 2 objections were received and maintained, and these objections are detailed in the report, and also the planning officer's response to those as well. And it is recommended that Council issues a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the use and building and works, for use and buildings and works for the construction of a dwelling, carport and outbuilding in accordance with the conditions outlined in the appendix of this report.
Moved, Councillor Forsyth. Seconder. Second by Councillor Janice. Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you. Delving into this one, Wandillagong has a heritage overlay over the most of Wandillagong township, and as VCAT, and this is part of that. Originally farming zone, and then as pointed out in the report, it went to VCAT in a minor subdivision into 3 blocks, I think it was, a couple of years ago. And VCAT pointed out that it possibly wasn't supposed to be farming zone and it should have been something else anyway. I think looking at the plans here that the applicant is really trying to abide by the intent of whatever the building requirements are under the notes on heritage overlay that sit underneath the Alpine Shire planning scheme, or planning scheme. They're showing different altitudes, different attitudes of the house. Pardon me, they separate out the carport. There has been some objection to the setback. However, I believe that the setback is as it is because of a requirement for the wastewater works, which possibly could have been put into the front yard, but that's not before us tonight. Yes, so I think all in all, the applicant is trying to put something in there that is not necessarily old looking, but it has the same look to it using modern applications. Thank you, that's really all I've got to say about this one.
Councillor Janice.
Thank you. Mr Bird, I don't know, we have a planning officer present as well, so thank you. I'm just a little bit confused with the heritage, the Shire heritage overlay aspect of it, where it says you must do certain things, as opposed to what the Shire planning scheme allows us to do. So which one overrides, or does the heritage overlay override any planning scheme that we might have, or planning building regulations, or is it the other way around? Does the heritage overlay sit underneath all the planning regulations and is a guide to that? Because I note that one of the objectors has communicated, I think, with most councillors and pointed out the word "must" in many of his sentences. This must happen, that must happen, that must happen. So I'd just like to clarify that, if I could, if you're able to do that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Janis, and I'm pleased that we have planning representation in the room if I get this wrong. So look, my understanding is that a planning application, the planning officer must consider the planning scheme, must consider the application, must consider the planning scheme for that application, okay? And so the planning scheme is made up of zones and overlays. There can be documents which are non-binding, which are referred to in a heritage overlay, so such as the Wandilligong Heritage Guidelines, for example, which is relevant for this one here. And
so you use the word non-binding?
Yeah, that's right. So, and it's a reference one, and it's something which I understand that the planning officers must consider, but it doesn't. It doesn't determine what decision they make. It's a consideration, but it's not actually. Their decision will not be determined by what's in it. Have I answered your question, or have I confused you?
No, I get the gist of it. Particularly in this application, the two these persons who have made objections seem to have a set mind on what the heritage overlay means, and I'm not being a planner by any means, was why I seek that clarification, and I'm sure most people listening to this would probably want to have that same answer or explanation. So just to make it clear in there. So I understand the heritage overlay is over an area of land, so namely in this case Wandilligong, and if you want to do something in relation to a building, it's a reference point as to what may occur. Doesn't necessarily have to occur, but you have to at least consider it. Can't be sort of totally outlandish with it, but there's a consideration. It should reflect a little bit of what the overlay says.
I think that's a fair assessment, Councillor Janis. Thank you. And if there are any people watching want further clarification, please contact our planning department and council. The officers there will be able to give you a very clear explanation.
Any further comments from any other councillors? Councillor
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, the guidelines are guidelines, and I note some of the feedback or expectations set out in the guidelines have sought to be accommodated. I guess I grapple with the idea that there are guidelines, but some of the key requirements are either not followed, or we have discretion to not follow them. I guess the basis for a discretion or that decision needs to be set out, and at this stage I can't see, particularly around the choice of cladding, how that guideline has been considered, and then therefore the discretion made to not follow that guideline. That's probably the one barrier for me. I accept the setback and some of the other arrangements and accommodating the splitting of the carport and the likes, but that particular guideline, and I think it's about what gets built moving forward. That was the point of those guidelines.
Any further comment?
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. I think because they are guidelines, and I will defer to the planning department here, which I believe has spent an inordinate amount of time on this, looking through those guidelines, considering those guidelines, and at the end of the day, and I think it's listed somewhere in one of the lines in this, if we don't step outside some of those, not step outside the guidelines, but take the guidelines into consideration, then we really don't end up with any change. And I believe that you cannot stay as it is continuously. Like, if you end up building a house that was basically the same as something that was built in 1950, then you're not progressing in anywhere. So that's why I pointed out earlier that I think the intent of the guidelines has been met in this case, with the application of newer materials, or materials that are probably sympathetic with the guidelines. I'll use that term. Like the angles of the roofs, for instance. No flat roofs are allowed under the guidelines, so there's no flat roofs, there's no curved roofs. Timbers being used in some of the framing, window frames, etc. Various things like that. So I think that the applicants have really tried to encapsulate the guidelines in what they also wish to produce as their own property, being a point of difference if they want a point of difference. Otherwise it might just look like something else down the road.
Thank you. Bring it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried.
The next person who goes out.
I was going to say, moving on to item 9.3.10.
Madam Chair, at this point I think it prudent that, although I declared a conflict of interest in item 11, these two matters refer to the same issue, and it'd be prudent that I leave the meeting at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Janis. Removed at 7:25 and Madam Mayor returned at 7:25.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor, for stepping in. And as introduced already, 9.3.10, reconsideration of planning application following the December 2021 council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Forsyth, and seconded Councillor Kiwa. Any need for any discussion? Anything? All those in favour? Carried. And then we move on to 9.3.11. The planning application, Mr. Bird.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this planning application relates to the current permit allows for buildings and works for the construction of a shed, creation of an access to a road zone category 1. The proposal or proposed amendment to this permit is that buildings and works for the construction of a shed and creation of an access to a road zone category 1 and use and development of land for an art and craft centre, plant nursery and business identification signage. The address of the application and proposal is 545 Myrtleford, Yakindana Road, Barwidgee, and it's in the farming zone. So the original permit was approved and the construction of a shed and a new access to the new accessway to a road zone 1. This application gave insight into the landowner's intent to use a portion of the shed for the purposes of a home-based business. This home-based business has not successfully complied with the planning provisions that apply to that specific land use. As a result, an amended application was received proposing to amend the original permit to include the new land use of art and craft centre combined with business identification signage. The amendment application was then later revised again to include the further land use of a plant nursery. The type of art and craft centre proposed will hand make and sell on-site a variety of timber and steel goods, including but not limited to equine goods, gate signs, garden art and picture frames. The land's positioned on there, as I said, the Myrtleford Yakindana Road, to the east of Barwidgee Creek. To the west, it's approximately 5 k's north of where we are today in Myrtleford, and sits within a farming area that's predominantly made up of several large rural holdings, with a number of smaller rural residential holdings spread along the edge of the road heading north. The ribbon or small rural residential holding extends to the north and subject land for the next 5 k's, creating a settlement known as Barwidgee. The application was advertised in accordance with the Planning Environment Act, and notice the application was sent to the 9 surrounding landholders, and 1 objection was received and maintained, and those 4 objections or the detailed objections are articulated in the report, and the officer's response is also to those objections are also detailed in the report as well. In closing, it is recommended that a notice decision to grant an amended planning permit be issued for the buildings and works for the construction of a shed and creation of an access to a road zone category 1 and use and development of land for an art and crafts centre, plant nursery and business identification signage in accordance with the conditions outlined in the appendix of this report.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. Reverend Seconder. Councillor Keeble move, Councillor Forsyth second. Councillor Keeble.
We had this one presented to us in February? December, my apologies. And we had asked for an acoustic report that we didn't receive, I believe. And it's the recommendation is the same as the recommendation in December? Yep. It's a difficult one, this one. I've got no questions. We'll wait till the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth.
This is debated long and hard in the, it wasn't actually debated because it was put aside. However, there was discussion at the time, and Councillor Janus brought up the discussion at the time. He was uncomfortable with, because of the objector, regarding the noise levels coming from this place. The officers from Alpine Shire have been to this particular site innumerable times, and their recommendation stands without, and they have answers to, all of those objections regarding noise. It is a farming zone still, therefore tractor is a recognised noise within a farming zone. The grinding noise is not 24/7, and there are 30 conditions on this particular recommendation that will outline and specify times that things can be done which may create noise. The objector's property, I believe, is about 135 metres from the subject site, and those 135 metres, within those 135 metres, there is a lot of screening trees. There is also another residence. So I don't believe, and if someone wishes to make an amendment regarding the getting of an acoustic report at this stage, and to have this subject to an acoustic report, I'm not sure what the acoustic report's actually going to prove. Is it going to prove that at the boundary level, the noise level is at 85 decibels and it should only be 83 decibels? And I believe acoustic reports are actually subject to the noise level within an enclosed room. So if the noise level is in the garden and it may be 85 decibels, then that's acceptable. So I'm not sure what an acoustic report would do at this stage anyway. So, as Councillor Kiwa has said, let's put it to the vote. I'll wait for the vote.
Councillor Hughes.
This one has been discussed amongst all of us so many times for such a long time. Just reading through the report again, the assessing officer's response is that this is located on an existing small rural holding that is removed from agricultural use, with its primary use being residential. So there's a lot of deciding factors on this one as to whether the type of development with this application is deemed acceptable in this space, I suppose. Yeah.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, just one question. There are, I'd appreciate understanding the level of collaboration or consultation on the proposed conditions with the applicant.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. So my understanding is that officers have worked with the applicant on this matter, and yes.
So thanks, Mr. Bird. Just to clarify, there's a lot of conditions there, specific around operating hours and operating of machinery and things. Has the applicant indicated an acceptance of those, given there was a previous request that hasn't been responded to?
I don't know if the applicant has been accepting of those these conditions. It's possible not.
Councillor Forsyth.
Just following up on Councillor Hughes pointing out that it is a small rural residential, I'd like to point out possibly 5 or 6 or 7 other instances where this is actually the case within the Alpine Shire, where there is a commercial business operating from one of these particular sites which have been removed from farming zone because it's very difficult to farm on, 8,000 square metres, unless you're growing something with a very high value. Truffles. Yeah, truffles, yeah. And, that I do. Or saffron. So that being the case, one of the things that I think a place like this actually does is to embellish what the offer is in tourism within the Alpine Shire. If we concentrate all of the tourism in spots, like designated spots, or the tourist outlets, then we are going to have that influx and concentration and over of people. Whereas this is a situation where it's on a road, there's good access into it. You come around the corner, and if you didn't know it was there, you'd think, oh, that looks interesting. And it's within bike riding distance of Myrtleford very easily. I just think that things like this, because if we go a bit further out the road, there is a concrete garden ornament business, which is on the road. If we go from here to Bright, there's probably 5 or 6 or 7 different businesses which are of the same ilk. So I just think, it just adds to the general flavour of the tourist offer that Alpine Shire's got to offer.
Any further comments? We're going to take it to the vote then. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Okay, number 10, informal meetings of councillors. Welcome back, Councillor Janice, at 7:38. Informal meetings of councillors, they are listed in the agenda. Anybody have any comments? No. Councillor Forsyth, Councillor Hughes, all those in favour, carried. Presentation of reports by delegates. Delegates, come in.
Just briefly, last Wednesday, I think it was, I went to the Savoy Club in Myrtleford, where there was a representing the community, the Alpine Shire Community Resilience Committee, as chair for a workshop being conducted by Red Cross through the neighbourhood centre to do some community resilience planning for the Myrtleford community and surrounds, from which there will be actions referred back to the Alpine Shire Resilience Committee. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Janice. Does anybody else have a report from the delegated committee? No. The next item is general business, and I'm going from my right. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 items. The first one, I wanted to just acknowledge the work that goes into setting up the road show of hosting our council meetings in various locations around the Shire. So thank you to the team to make that happen. I know you've got to improvise at times and make it work, so thank you. The second one is around what the Regional Australia Institute is calling the Regional Renaissance. So Alpine Shire is actually not so unique when we think about most of our neighbouring shires and areas in terms of a big change in our demographic and many people discovering what we know, in that living your life in a regional location can be a great thing. I bring that up because I think it's important to have the community know that we're looking pretty closely at this. So our land development strategy is a key priority this calendar year. Secondly, we've already been doing some work on key worker housing and some of those housing dynamics, and I understand there'll be a report to council soon around how other areas, and being outward looking, how other areas have managed that economic and tourism need for short-term housing versus accommodating those that live in the area. And I think thirdly, there is a significant development proposal on the border of the Bright Township, and that also is a key part of this calendar year in terms of when we're thinking about how we move forward as a community. So I call out the regional renaissance because there's going to be lots of opportunity for our community to approach us, and I'm very approachable about what people's opinions are and how we move forward. I want to make sure people are happy to live in the street they live in, and they feel supported in their community. And I also want to make sure that we continue to provide a great place for people to come and visit and holiday and relax. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Hughes.
I second what Councillor Kelly has mentioned in terms of being approachable. We are community members here for the community, and I think that needs to be reiterated that, we're in this with you, not against you, and a lot of the time people are coming with you with things that aren't necessarily working so well, which is fine. But it's really nice to also be told what is happening that's going right, because there is so much good that is done for our communities through council, through our community groups, and I think people also need to be acknowledged for the good work that they do. So I put it out there to everybody that yes, we are approachable and we want to talk to you. It might not be me, it might be one of the others that you're more comfortable with, and that's also fine, hence why there's a mix of us. But yeah, just to do the pat on the back sometime goes a long way as well. I also wanted to make mention of just something outside of council where more so probably our youth have access to personal development opportunities in terms of grant funding from a lot of our community groups like the Lions Youth of the Year, Alan J. Finlay bursary and items like that. I really urge not only the youth of our area but those involved with them, so the adults and the mentors in their lives, to reach out to these people and nominate them and get them known and get them in this process. It could be something small, it could be something big, but to learn through these processes is a massive value add to our youth growing up. Sometimes things don't always go, you're not always going to win, and I think that's a learning curve in itself as well, but it's a really, really good opportunity for the youth in our area to put themselves out there and really gain access to this type of responsibility, I suppose, and commitment to doing something. But just, I urge the mentors involved to really reach out, because applications might be light on with some of these things, and they've been happening since I was at school as well. So they've been around for a long time. It's just a matter of having those discussions and really just, taking that 15 minutes to have a chat with somebody or to put in an application to put forward this recognition of what it is that people in our community do. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Keeble? Nothing? Councillor Janice? No? Councillor Forsyth?
Look, just very quickly, if we've still got anybody watching, congratulations. This is one of the longest council meetings I think I've sat in the last 10 years. There has been a lot of business done tonight, but it is also good to see the amount of discussion that actually goes on. So I'm looking forward to the next council meeting, maybe not being quite so long, but we'll be in Mount Beauty, so you never know.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth. I don't have any general business either after that. Except to hear some of the comments that were made. Motion to switch notice has previously been given. There is none. Reception and reading of petitions. And the recommendation is that Council notes and receives the petition from residents of Mummery Road on behalf of a group of residents and users of Mummery Road, Myrtleford, requesting Council to install a path along Mummery Road from the existing footpath on the corner of Bird Avenue and Mummery Road up to Tarrangower Court. A report will be tabled at the next ordinary council meeting in May 2022. Moved by Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Forsyth. Any comments, questions? No. All those in favour? It's carried, and thank you very much for the residents for Mummery Road who pulled that together, and thank you very much for Will for his support in that process. Mr. Jeremy. And then we can move on to documents for sealing, and there are 3.
Sure.
Beautiful. Councillor Hughes and Councillor Janis. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Carried. Done. The meeting is closed at 7:47.